Have you ever felt like you're doing absolutely everything right, eating clean food, training consistently, but your belly seems to ignore all your effort? It's one of the biggest frustrations I hear in my office. People who live on a diet, yet sometimes feel like they gain weight just by looking at a piece of bread. If you live under constant pressure, sleep poorly, or feel like your brain simply never shuts off, the problem may not be a lack of willpower, but a silent flood of cortisol in your bloodstream. Cortisol is a hormone that, in excess, tells your body, we are in danger. Store fat in the belly now so we can survive. Today, I'm going to show you how chronic stress is literally acting like an invisible architect, redesigning your body and focusing energy storage exactly where is most dangerous for your health. Cortisol is not a villain by nature, but has been hijacked by the modern lifestyle, turning a survival mechanism into a saboteur of your physical shape. Hello, I'm Dr. Harrison Blake. I'm a medical specialist. In 15 years of medical practice, I've seen that stress and hormonal imbalance destroy far more weight loss plans than sugar or fat ever could. If you want to understand the biochemistry behind your abdomen and finally regain control, you're in the right place. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. How is your stress level today? I read every story. To understand why stress creates belly fat, you need to go back thousands of years in time. Cortisol is the main hormone produced by your adrenal glands in response to any threatening situation. On the African savanna, that threat was a predator or a period of total food scarcity. When your brain detected danger, it released cortisol to prepare your body for fight or flight. This hormone did something brilliant. It shut down non-essential functions, such as the reproductive system and digestion, and focused everything on immediate survival, guaranteeing rapid energy for your muscles. The big problem is that your body still operates with this 10,000-year-old software, but today's threats have completely changed. Your brain does not know the difference between being chased by a lion and receiving a last-minute demand from your boss, facing chaotic traffic, or worrying about bills at the end of the month. For your biology, stress is stress. When you live worried or anxious, your body believes you are in a constant economic crisis. And what does any intelligent system do during a crisis? It starts saving. Cortisol signals to your body that food might run out at any moment, and the most efficient way to store energy for the future is by accumulating fat. In 15 years of medicine, I explain to my patients that high cortisol turns your body into a storage machine. Imagine you have a bank account. Cortisol acts like a pessimistic bank manager who, at the slightest sign of market instability, freezes your investments and starts storing all the money in the vault, afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The problem is that in the modern world, the market never stabilizes. Mental stress does not burn the calories that physical stress used to burn thousands of years ago. You sit in front of a computer with cortisol exploding in your bloodstream, your adrenal glands working overtime, but your body does not burn the energy in a fight or in a sprint to escape danger. It simply stores it. This constant state of alert, this alarm that never turns off, creates a hormonal environment where fat burning is seen by the body as a threat to survival. If you are in danger, your body wants to keep fat reserves to ensure you survive the difficult days it believes are coming. That is why, even if you eat very little, if you are psychologically exhausted, your body will fight the scale to maintain every gram of stored energy. Many people ask me, Dr. Blake, why doesn't stress fat go to my face or my calves? Why does it have to concentrate around my waist? The answer lies in cellular biology. Not all fat in your body is the same. There are different types of fat deposits, and they respond differently to hormonal signals. In the abdominal region, especially in visceral fat, the fat that sits behind the muscle and surrounds your organs, the density of cortisol receptors is dramatically higher than in the rest of the body. Scientific studies show that visceral fat cells have up to 4 times more cortisol receptors than subcutaneous fat, the type you can pinch. This means that when cortisol rises in your bloodstream, the cells in your belly are the first to hear the call. They are extremely sensitive to this hormone. It's as if your waist had giant satellite dishes tuned to the frequency of stress, while the rest of your body only has small, noisy radios. When cortisol levels increase, these abdominal cells are activated to capture and store fat immediately and aggressively. But why did the body evolve this way? Again, the answer is survival. Visceral fat is strategically positioned near the portal vein, which drains blood directly to the liver. In a real danger situation, the body needs rapid energy. Having fat stored there, near the command center, makes it easier to quickly release fatty acids for the liver to convert into glucose for the muscles. In addition, abdominal fat acts as a thermal and physical shield for your vital organs. In its ancestral wisdom, your body believes that if you are under stress, it must protect your pancreas, liver, and kidneys at all costs. The problem is that in the modern world, this protection becomes a prison. Because stress is chronic and there is no real fight to burn this released fat, the cycle reverses. High cortisol favors accumulation, and the accumulation of visceral fat itself begins producing inflammatory substances that further increase your biological stress. This is what I call the geography of disaster. You end up creating an energy warehouse that your body refuses to open because the emergency signal never shuts off. Over these 15 years of medicine, I've noticed that this apple-shaped fat distribution is the most reliable biomarker that a patient is suffering from adrenal overload. If you notice that your arms are becoming thinner while your belly becomes increasingly rigid and prominent, your body is screaming that cortisol is in command. It is moving the pieces on the board to protect your core, completely ignoring aesthetics or your desire to fit into those old genes again. Understanding that this is a cellular response guided by specific receptors is liberating because it shows that the path to losing this fat is not to attack your body with more deprivation, but to change a hormonal message your receptors are receiving 24 hours a day. In 15 years of medical practice, one of the most common scenes in my office is a patient who swears they don't eat carbohydrates, yet shows elevated fasting glucose and a persistent belly. How is that possible? The answer lies in what I call the triangle disaster. Cortisol, in order to fulfill its mission of providing energy for survival, does something drastic. It stimulates a process called gluconeogenesis in the liver. Simply put, cortisol orders your liver to take proteins, often from your own muscles, and convert them into glucose, releasing sugar into your bloodstream. Your body does this because it believes you need to run from imminent danger. But since you are just sitting there, stressed about an email, that sugar is not burned by your muscles. And what happens when blood sugar rises? Your pancreas steps in and releases the second vertex of the triangle, insulin. Insulin's job is to remove sugar from the blood and store it inside cells. But remember the previous chapter. The cells in your belly are hungry for energy due to the excess cortisol receptors. So insulin takes that sugar that cortisol itself ordered to be produced and pushes it straight into visceral fat cells. It's a double hit. Cortisol releases the energy, and insulin stores in the belly. The result is controlled blood sugar, but an ever-growing abdominal fat reserve. This vicious cycle creates what we call insulin resistance. Over time, your cells stop responding properly to insulin, and the pancreas must produce even larger amounts of it. Because insulin is the body's main storage hormone, chronically high levels act like an electronic lock. They prevent fat from leaving the cells to be burned. As long as the triangle of disaster remains active, you can starve yourself, but your body will not have the biochemical permission to use belly fat as fuel. But it doesn't stop there. Cortisol also affects your behavior through the brain. It deactivates areas of the prefrontal cortex responsible for judgment and self-control and hyperactivates the amygdala, the center of fear and impulses. That's why under stress, you don't crave a salad. You crave comfort food. Your brain desperately searches for foods rich in sugar and fat to increase dopamine and compensate for the discomfort caused by cortisol. This is the famous emotional eating. You eat to calm the internal hormonal storm, but you end up providing even more raw material for the triangle of disaster to act. Once you understand this mechanism, it becomes clear that controlling abdominal fat necessarily involves controlling your stress response. Counting calories is not enough if your liver is producing sugar internally and your insulin is locking the doors to fat burning. To break this triangle, we need interventions that signal to the brain that the danger has passed. Only when cortisol levels drop does insulin retreat, allowing visceral fat to finally be mobilized. In 15 years of medicine, I've learned that the key is not eating less, but stopping the constant emergency signal to your pancreas and liver 24 hours a day. Your body operates according to a very precise biological clock called a circadian rhythm. In an ideal scenario, cortisol should peak around 8 a.m. to give you energy and focus to start the day, and gradually decline until reaching its lowest level around 10 p.m., allowing melatonin, the sleep hormone, to take over. However, for those living under chronic stress, this clock breaks. Cortisol remains high at night, keeping your brain in a state of vigilance, which results in that feeling of being tired but wired. When cortisol invades your night, it destroys the quality of your deep sleep, which is exactly the phase when your body produces growth hormone GH. GH is one of the most powerful fat-burning and muscle-rebuilding hormones we have. Without deep sleep, you do not produce enough GH. And without GH, your body enters a state of muscle breakdown. In other words, you begin losing lean mass in your arms and legs while high cortisol continues storing fat in your belly. That is why many stressed people develop the appearance of being skinny fat. They lose the muscles that accelerate metabolism while keeping visceral fat. Sleep deprivation also dramatically increases insulin resistance the very next day. Studies show that just one poor night of sleep can reduce insulin sensitivity to levels comparable to prediabetes. This means that the next morning, anything you eat will produce a much larger insulin spike, again favoring abdominal fat accumulation. There is also a direct link to hunger. Poor sleep reduces leptin, the satiety hormone, and increases ghrelin, the hunger hormone. The result? You wake up exhausted and with an uncontrollable desire to eat refined carbohydrates to buy the energy that sleep failed to give you. We also cannot ignore sleep apnea and snoring, which are very common in people who already have increased visceral fat. Sleep apnea causes micro-awakenings and drops in blood oxygen levels, which the brain interprets as a suffocation event, an extreme stress signal. And the response to suffocation is, you guessed it, more cortisol released during the night. It's a cruel cycle. Visceral fat disrupts sleep. Poor sleep increases cortisol, and cortisol increases visceral fat. In my 15 years of practice, I've seen that improving sleep hygiene is just as important as adjusting diet. If you don't lower your cortisol before bedtime, your body will spend the entire night in storage mode, and you'll wake up feeling more bloated and with a more prominent belly than when you went to sleep. The nighttime enemy is silent, but it leaves very clear marks on your measuring tape. The first step to lowering cortisol and releasing visceral fat is understanding that you do not defeat stress with more stress. Many patients make the mistake of responding to stress and weight gain by entering extreme restrictive diets and doing hours of intense aerobic exercise. For a body that already has high cortisol, this is interpreted as more danger. Excessive high-intensity cardio when you're already exhausted can paradoxically increase belly fat because it raises the adrenal alarm signal even further. The secret is to prioritize exercises that improve insulin sensitivity without exploding cortisol levels, such as strength training and light outdoor walks, preferably in contact with nature. In the field of supplementation and nutrition, there are powerful allies known as adaptogens. Plants like ashwagandha and rhodiola rosea have the unique ability to help the body modulate the stress response, smoothing out cortisol spikes. Magnesium is another essential ally. It is the mineral of relaxation. It helps calm the nervous system and improve sleep quality, which, as we've seen, is crucial. Another key factor is sunlight. 20 minutes of morning sunlight exposure helps regulate your circadian rhythm, signaling to the brain that the day has started and allowing cortisol to naturally decline when night arrives. Breathing is also a free pharmacological tool. Deep diaphragmatic breathing sends a direct signal to the vagus nerve that the body is safe. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a brake pedal of stress. Practicing this for 5 minutes before meals can change the way your body processes food, reducing the insulin response. Finally, remove chemical triggers. Excess caffeine, especially after 2 p.m., keeps your adrenal glands in a state of artificial alertness. If your cortisol is already high, coffee is like pouring gasoline on a fire. Replace it with relaxing herbal teas or simply proper hydration. By providing magnesium, sunlight, proper breathing, and avoiding excessive stimulants, you finally give your body permission to open the vault of abdominal fat. Your metabolism is not broken. It is simply waiting for the signal that the war is over so it can return to burning energy normally. We've reached the end of this detailed explanation, and my final message to you is this. You don't need more military-style discipline or radical restrictions. You need balance. The visceral fat that bothers you so much is not a sign of personal failure, but a cry for help from your body trying to survive in an environment of constant pressure. Cortisol is a messenger, and your belly is the message. From today on, treat stress reduction not as a luxury, but as a non-negotiable metabolic strategy. When you choose to sleep better, breathe consciously, and nourish your body with the right minerals, you are literally changing the destiny of your abdominal fat. Your body wants to be healthy and efficient. It just needs you to turn off the alarm signal so it can thrive again. I'm Dr. Harrison Blake. If this video helped you understand that mental peace is the most powerful fat burner that exists, share it with someone who lives under constant pressure. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment below. I choose balance. See you at the next level of health. See you in the next video.